the assassination of Burundian President Cyprien Ntaryamira, and the genocide against the Tutsi. On April 6, 1994, the assassination of Rwandan President Juvénal Habyarimana and Burundian President Cyprien Ntaryamira triggered one of the worst atrocities of the 20th century. The genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, which claimed over 1 million lives. While much attention focuses on Rwanda, Ntaryamira's death also deepened Burundi's cycle of violence, leading to years of civil war and mass killings. President Cyprien Ntaryamira, a leader cut down before peace. Cyprien Ntaryamira, a Hutu, became Burundi's president in February 1994, following the assassination of the country's first democratically elected Hutu president, Melchior Ndadaye, in October 1993. Ndadaye's murder by Tutsi extremists in the military had already sparked horrific retaliatory violence, with an estimated 50,000 to 100,000 dead in just months. Ntaryamira was a moderate leader attempting to stabilize Burundi amid rising ethnic tensions. His presidency was meant to restore trust between Hutu and Tutsi communities, but extremists on both sides opposed reconciliation. The fateful flight, April 6, 1994. Ntaryamira had traveled to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, for emergency regional talks with Habyarimana and other East African leaders. The discussions centered on implementing peace agreements in both Rwanda and Burundi. After the meeting, Ntaryamira boarded Habyarimana's French-built Dassault Falcon 50 jet to return to Kigali, likely intending to cross back into Burundi afterward. At around 8:20 p.m., as the plane prepared to land, 2 surface-to-air missiles struck it, causing a catastrophic explosion. The wreckage crashed into the grounds of Habyarimana's palace, killing everyone on board instantly. The immediate aftermath: genocide and war. 1. The genocide against the Tutsi, over 1 million dead. The assassination of Habyarimana was the signal Hutu extremists needed to launch their meticulously planned genocide against the Tutsi. The Rwandan armed forces, FAR, the Presidential Guard, and the Interahamwe militia began slaughtering Tutsi civilians within hours. Radio stations like RTLM, Radio Television Libre de Mille Collines, incited violence, urging Hutu to exterminate the cockroaches. The international community failed to intervene, and the UN peacekeeping mission, Ntaryamira, was powerless. The killing only stopped when the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, led by Paul Kagame, took control in July 1994. 2. Burundi's descent into civil war. Ntaryamira's death left Burundi without stable leadership. His successor, Sylvestre Ntibantunganya, faced escalating violence. Unlike Rwanda, where the genocide was a systematic extermination of Tutsi, Burundi's conflict was more complex. Tutsi military purges of Hutu politicians, Hutu rebel attacks on Tutsi civilians, massacres in rural areas. By 1996, a Tutsi-led military coup overthrew Ntibantunganya, plunging Burundi into a 12-year civil war that killed over 300,000 people. Who killed Ntaryamira? The unanswered question. The assassination remains unresolved. The main theories include Hutu extremists in Rwanda, who wanted to eliminate Habyarimana and saw Ntaryamira as collateral damage. Tutsi hardliners in Burundi's military, who opposed Hutu leadership. Foreign involvement. A controversial but persistent conspiracy theory. Ntaryamira's forgotten legacy. While Habyarimana's death triggered the genocide against the Tutsi, Ntaryamira's assassination is often overlooked. His killing destroyed hopes for peace in Burundi, escalated ethnic reprisal killings, led to a decade of civil war. Today, Burundi remains politically unstable, while Rwanda has rebuilt under Kagame's leadership. But the true death toll, well over 1 million in the genocide against the Tutsi alone, stands as a grim reminder of the consequences of hatred and international inaction. The downing of that fateful presidential jet on the evening of April 6th 1994, was not merely an assassination. It was the detonation of a human catastrophe whose shockwaves continue to reverberate across Central Africa 3 decades later. As the flaming wreckage of Habyarimana's Falcon 50 crashed into the gardens of Kigali's presidential compound, it carried with it not just 2 heads of state, but the last fragile hopes for peace in the Great Lakes region. What followed was not just violence, but the systematic implementation of a long-planned genocide against the Tutsi people. A killing campaign of such ferocity and speed that it defied comprehension, leaving over 1 million dead in just 100 days. The true magnitude of this horror extends beyond numbers. Each of those million lives represented a universe of potential extinguished. Fathers butchered before their children, mothers raped and mutilated, infants smashed against walls, entire families erased from existence. The genocide against the Tutsi was not spontaneous violence, but industrialized slaughter, executed with machetes and nail-studded clubs, fueled by a sophisticated propaganda machine that turned neighbors into executioners. The international community's criminal indifference, from the UN's refusal to reinforce its peacekeepers to Western nations evacuating their citizens while abandoning Rwandans to their fate, stands as one of the most shameful failures of the post-Holocaust era. Yet the tragedy of that April night was double-edged. While Rwanda descended into hell, Burundi lost its best chance for stability with Ntaryamira's murder. His death at 36, barely 2 months into his presidency, plunged Burundi into a spiral of vengeance that would claim 300,000 more lives in the following decade. Where Rwanda experienced concentrated horror, Burundi endured prolonged agony. A civil war marked by massacres, disappearances, and the slow erosion of humanity. Today, as memorials like Kigali's Genocide Museum preserve the memory of the victims, we must confront difficult truths. The genocide against the Tutsi was not an inevitable tribal conflict, but the result of deliberate political engineering, a campaign of dehumanization years in the making. Similarly, Burundi's violence was not primordial hatred, but the consequence of power struggles and colonial legacies weaponized by elites. The millions dead across both nations were not casualties of ancient animosities, but victims of modern extremism enabled by global apathy. The lessons scream at us from mass graves and survivor testimonies. That hate propaganda kills, that indifference enables slaughter, that justice delayed is justice denied. Rwanda's remarkable recovery, from killing fields to one of Africa's most stable nations, offers hope but cannot erase responsibility. The international community owes more than memorials and remorse. It owes vigilance against the warning signs that were so blatantly ignored in 1994. As we remember the presidents whose deaths ignited catastrophe, we must also honor the uncounted multitudes who perished in the storms that followed. The Tutsi exterminated for their identity, the moderate Hutu murdered for their conscience, the Burundians caught in endless cycles of retribution. Their legacy must be more than statistics in history books. It must be our collective resolve to say, never again, and mean it. For in remembering how easily a single night's violence can unravel a civilization, we arm ourselves against the next descent into darkness. The flames of April 1994 burned away illusions about human nature and international protection. What we build from those ashes will define our humanity.